Closed captioning is available for the hard of hearing and some other languages. Disclaimer, I used Google Translate, so I hope they're accurate. Hey there, my name is Dee, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a color mixing chart for your paints. I did this once before with a 12-pan set of watercolors, which resulted in 144 colors. That video will be linked below. But now I have a 24-color set of gouache paint, which will make 576 different colors when mixed with each other. Really, there are even more color possibilities than that if you vary the amount of colors mixed. I'll also only be mixing 23 out of the 24 colors, and I'll explain why that is in a bit. A few tips for prepping your setup. If you have a lot of colors in your set, find a large palette for mixing colors. I'm using a dinner plate. When I did my 144 color mixing chart, I started by using the small mixing wells that came with the watercolor set. And I would be constantly wiping out the little wells to make room for new mixes, so I switched to a larger palette and it really helped. Especially now that I'll be mixing every color with 23 other colors, I want to have plenty of room to do my mixing without any of the colors getting contaminated by other mixes, and also, like I said, not having to constantly stop to clean off the palette. Another tip would be to have 2 cups of water, which is pretty standard with most painting practices, I think. It helps to use only one of the water cups for cleaning the paint off your brush, and the other cup of water, which remains clean, you use for wetting and picking up new paint. Paper towels are really handy. I have this flat, smooth kitchen hand towel that I keep under my water cups, so I can quickly wipe off my brushes and I don't have to worry about holding on to a paper towel or trying to figure out where I set it. Another tip would be to have 2 paintbrushes. One you'll dip into your main color to make a separate pile of paint, and another you'll use to get a small amount of paint from the tubes so the paint tubes don't get cross-contaminated. And a last tip would be to keep your paint tubes sitting in the same order as you're making the chart. That way you don't have to keep referencing the chart to see which color is next. They'll just all be in line. I want to make sure I explain this thoroughly enough for anyone who might want to try, so timestamps will be in the description if you want to skip my explanation and go straight to the filling in boxes part. I have all the color names written out along each axis of the grid in the same order. I'm going to start with the white paint, which will let me touch immediately on why I'm only doing 23 of the colors instead of all 24. This Arteza gouache set comes with 2 whites. One is labeled titanium white and the other is just labeled white. They're both shown on the box to have the same opacity, but with a little bit of Google research, I found out that the white acts more like a zinc white, which is best used to mix with other colors to create a lighter, milky, or more pastel version of said color. The titanium white, however, is not necessarily best when mixed with other colors, but rather is best used as a highlight color as it's much stronger in opacity and more on the cooler tone side. So I'll be using just the white paint on the chart and not the titanium white. Even if they are the same white, I'll only need to mix one of them anyway. So this process is pretty time consuming. I'll use a larger amount of the main color and a smaller amount of the secondary color in the mix and paint it on the square where those 2 colors meet. Since I'm starting with white, I'll start at the empty box next to the color name white and follow that row to see which color I'm mixing it with, which is noir or black. Since my squares are so small, I need very little paint. I didn't start out doing this, but came to realize later on that it's easier if you put a glob of your main color on the plate first that can be dipped into for every new color mix. Then use my second brush to dip into the black paint tube and mix that into the white paint that I've separated on my palette, and paint it on that first square. The black is much stronger than the white, so you can see the color is still very dark. Clean your brush, find the next blank square in the white row, follow that row to the next color, which is gray. Add a tiny bit of gray to your new white paint, mix it up, and paint it in the square. This process repeats for every single color. Maybe there's a better method for this, but it's how I decided to go about it, and so far my other color mixing chart has never failed me when I reference it for color recipes. Once all of the white row is complete, if you need to clean off your palette, go ahead and do that. Then you'll start the entire process over with the next color in line, which in my case is lemon yellow. Just for a brief recap, add the main color, lemon yellow, to your palette. Find the color that the first square leads to, which is noir. In my case, noir will always be the first color. It helps to keep your paint tubes in the same order as you go through each row. Add a lesser bit of noir to your yellow, mix, and paint. Repeat all of the steps until your color mixing chart is complete. Something you'll notice if you've done it correctly is if you start from the same color on both axes and run your fingers along the rows until they meet, that square should be the pure color mixed with nothing else. The pure unmixed colors will go in a diagonal line across your chart. If there's an easier way to do this, please don't tell me because I'll cry. You can leave it in the comments for the other viewers and I'll just pretend like I didn't see it. So here's the finished chart. Since I mixed 23 colors with 23 colors, I have a total of 529 shades. Obviously, if you vary the color amounts, you can get even more, but this is great for when you're wanting a specific color. I can scan this chart, find the color I want, and find the recipe on how to mix it. It's hard to see on camera, but I put highlighter down the row on the side where the higher ratio of colors are. A lot of these shades are incredibly similar, which is kind of sad, but to be expected. But there are a lot of subtle differences that if you've been making art with color for any amount of time, you know that just a slight shift in tone can help an entire piece. If this is something you're interested in trying, I highly recommend it. Like for my first chart I made, I'll link that video. You may only have a set with a few colors, and that may make you feel limited, so having a chart like this showing you a visual of tons of the color possibilities your set has can be really motivating. And it is for me at least, since I don't know a ton about color theory yet. This is super helpful. And this chart will be even more helpful since, even though this is a 24 gouache color set, I have a 40 color set of watercolors that have a lot of the same colors in it. And before, I was using my first color mixing chart of only 144 colors to help me reference color mixes. But now with this larger chart, it'll be much more accurate since the two larger sets have a lot more colors in common. How many times have I said color? Do not be fooled by the speedy edit of the process. I have almost 4 hours of footage, and I only had the camera rolling as I was physically putting paint to paper. So that footage time doesn't include mixing all the colors, washing the brushes in between each color, opening and closing every paint tube, which hurt my fingers after a while. I did only have to clean my palette off twice, but I had to get new glasses of water about 4 or 5 times. I hope this video was helpful to someone in some way and not too ridiculously convoluted. If you might give this a try, leave this video a thumbs up, or if you have any tips, leave them in the comments. Consider subscribing to my channel to see more artsy videos from me, and turn your notifications to all so YouTube can let you know when I post my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!